So it was a beautiful dive this morning, and it's not a bad looking esky if you ask me. But today we're making takoyaki.
Oh, that thing fucking like a ton. Look at this thing, it's covered in it.
Alrighty, so straight up we're going to boil some water, and then we're going to chuck our octopus tentacles in there. Skin on or off, depends on your preference. I prefer to keep the skin on. I think it brings some awesome flavors to that water, which we're then going to use later on in a kind of dashi stock that is going to make the batter of our takoyaki. We're going to let that boil away maybe for 20 minutes, maybe for 30 minutes, but just keep poking it with a fork, and once you can push the fork in without too much resistance, then it is time for them to come out. So we're going to make a quick dashi out of that water we cooked the octopus in. You want to add some katsuobushi or bonito flakes and follow that with some kombu or seaweed. We don't want to boil that or simmer it, we just want to be steeping that at a nice high heat. Now let's get some toppings ready. Let's chop some spring onions nice and fine. And take some wombok cabbage. We're going to cut the top off and use some of this thinner, leafier stuff. We're going to shred it, cut it into nice, slim little strips, and take some pickled ginger as well. And we're going to chop this up nice and fine as well. And then lastly, let's slice up the tentacles and roughly chop them into pea-sized pieces. So let's now strain out that dashi stock that we made a little earlier. Now this recipe is my own little twist and spin on takoyaki, but if you're looking for something more traditional, I definitely recommend cooking with dog. They do some awesome stuff over there, and that's where I got a lot of my ratios for this recipe. I'll add a link in the description down below. Just crack an egg quickly and whisk that in. And lastly, add a little splash of soy sauce. So here comes the fiddly part. You're going to need to get yourself a takoyaki pan, and I'm pretty sure I got mine off Amazon for around 30 bucks. So there's plenty around, plenty of options, but I'll add a link in the description below for one of them. To start out, you're going to want to ladle in some of your batter mix, and you're going to fill the little pockets to about halfway to about 3/4 full, and then start adding your toppings on top. We've got the octopus, the pickled ginger, a little bit of cabbage, and the spring onions here. Once you got them covered across the whole pan, we're going to ladle in some more batter mix across the top until we've got the entire pan covered. Once we have the pan completely covered, we're just going to leave it and try and let it form a bit of a skin or a crust so we can start forming up these balls. So you'll see here the batter has started to cook through, and I'm using 2 skewers. I like skewers over chopsticks or anything like that because they're quite pointy. And we're just going to make our way around the pan, slowly forming up these balls. Just breaking up the batter mix that's forming on the top of the pan as it's starting to get a little doughy. This can be a bit fiddly and it's a slow process, but we want to start forming these balls up before they get too much of a crust happening. As the balls continue to cook, we're going to keep working the dough, slowly forming them closer and closer to what we want. And as they start to release from the pan and cook through and form a nice crust, we're going to turn them as well. The easiest way to do this is going to be to work the skewer around the edge to make sure that they are loose and have released. And then we're going to stick our skewer into the ball and give it a quick flick to turn it. So we're going to repeat this process, working our way around the pan. The balls might not all cook at the same time depending on how even the heat is on the pan. So if one's being particularly stubborn or difficult, just leave that one and move on to another. Once we've flipped all of these balls a few times to cover all of the edges, we're going to start loading them onto a plate. And you can just stab them and flick them out. Toppings for our takoyaki are going to be super simple here. We're going to use a takoyaki sauce, which is kind of like a Worcestershire, kind of barbecue-y, tangy, kind of sweet soy. And we're going to drizzle that back and forth over the top, followed by a quick drizzle of Kewpie mayo as well. Drizzle this in the opposite direction that we did the takoyaki sauce. We've got a little sprinkle of aonori, which is like a powdered seaweed. And to top it off, some katsuobushi or bonito flakes. And there we have it, catch and cook takoyaki. One of my favorite dishes to make and one that gets me real excited to see octopus in the water.